real short one there for you. I had a lot of complaints about the extended scream in the morning, every morning. And it's like, okay, I thought you guys were into metal. Speaking of being into metal, we have one of the foremost metal producers on the fucking planet here, Mr. Andy Sneap. Andy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I've been wanting to do this interview like basically since 2005, ever since, the whole Andy Sneap forum thing started on
Were you on
Metal.
that?
Of course I was.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah, I remember you chid me out one day. I was talking about getting drums acclimatized. I'd learned something from Roger Nichols about working with a new drummer. Get the drums in 24 hours beforehand, and he wrote, "What the fuck are you on about?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are you on about?
hey, blame Roger Nichols. The guy got great drum sounds, and I was like, whatever. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So that was the idea there. So. Holy shit, thanks so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting us into your incredible studio. We got to look around here. We're going to probably be rolling some B-roll throughout this video so we can see all the cool shit going on, that kind of stuff. But we're here to talk about you, what you're doing these days, and just kind of some of your general overall philosophy when it comes to recording metal. Right. We're having a very interesting conversation about live stuff, and I think this is really cool as well. But first things first, let me see here. Questions for Sneap. We actually wrote some shit down ahead of time. See, kids, this is how you do it. You write shit down.
Prepped.
Yes,
yeah. Preparation.
Okay, so you started out playing guitar with Sabbath.
Yeah.
Correct. And so how did that morph into production and recording?
I was always interested in the recording side of things, and it was always, to me, being in a band, I love the sort of creative thing of putting music together and hearing it come together. So whenever I was doing sessions or we were doing the albums with Sabbath, to me, the studio was by far the more interesting part of things, hearing it come together and putting, more guitars in and the way you just layer things up. So I was always fascinated by it, and I got a Tascam Portal 1 and a little DAT machine, and I used to just record demos with my PV Bandit and Yamaha RY30 drum machine, just putting the songs together. So when ADATs came out, and I actually had a reel-to-reel before that. Was it a Tascam R8 or Fostex R8? I think it was. And a little 812 desk that I had set up at the rehearsal room, not far from here. And so I was demoing bands at the same time as I was doing, sort of after Sabbath had split up, I was demoing bands to sort of make a bit of money. So I just sort of fell into it on that, that respect. I got a bit of a reputation locally as the guy to go to for recording metal stuff, because I'd done 3 albums with Sabbath and done sessions, so I had a bit more of an idea of how metal should sound. And then ADATs came along, and I bought sort of 5 ADATs, and there'd be 2 in the repair shop while 3 were actually working.
And those were not cheap back in those days.
No, but it was still an affordable way, with sort of 10 grand, you could get a 24-track studio with a Mackie and the extension board and the ADATs. So that was kind of what I did. And then I started working at a bigger 24-track studio, which was an old Atari tape machine and an AMEC Mozart desk in there. And so I sort of took a natural step to doing, working on tape. And then I worked with Colin Richardson there, and then ended up working in LA with Colin. And one thing led to another, really. So it was just a natural sort of way of working. And after the band had split up in the early 90s, it was a way of staying within the music industry and being creative and actually making a living doing it. So it was just a natural course that I took. And the other thing as well, which was great, was after all the stress of being in bands and trying to make bands work, I realised as a producer, I was kind of in charge of my own destiny, really. I wasn't relying on 4 other people to sort of toe the line, if that's the right expression. Not that I was in control, but I was in control of my own career rather than having to rely on other people to be as into it as I was,
Fair enough. No, I totally get what you're saying there. Same thing for me. I was playing in bands, and that's how it worked. Open a studio, it's like, oh, suddenly you can set the schedules, and people kind of have to work around what you're doing.
Yeah.
To a little bit extent, anyway. So the big question there, you were talking about ADATs and whatnot. So yeah, you obviously remember making the transition from analog into digital. So
yeah.
When was that, do you think?
For me?
Yeah, and what was the big?
Well, I'll tell you, I bought my first Pro Tools rig. which was a blue and white G3. We were running I think it was 4.3, which didn't have any MIDI or a grid or anything in it. I think I had a 3 gig hard drive at the time, and I bought it to do Blaze Bayley's first solo record.
So what year was that?
That would have been 97 or 98. But we still did it on 2-inch tape, and we ran I had an ADAT bridge with it as well. So I was flying things into Pro Tools and then back onto the 2-inch. It was still that mentality of it. It was a tool rather than a main recording tool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was then. And then the more, obviously I got very familiar with it quickly. And then by sort of 98, 99, maybe 2000, I was doing full albums on Pro Tools. But it was kind of almost, when we first started doing that, I think Nevermore, I can't remember now. I think Nevermore, Dead Heart, I used all Pro Tools, but I still used it more as a tape machine, and used outboard gear. I know I definitely ran the SSL. It came back up the SSL as as though it was coming back off tape. I think the second Stuck Mojo album I did, Declaration of a Headhunter, was all on Pro Tools. So it was around that time, 2000. But it was kind of weird because you didn't know whether to trust it or not. It seemed like a good idea, but because you weren't using tape, it was like, oh, is this the right thing to do?
Sure. Can I do this? It's
yeah, but it was
will the band believe it? That's the big thing. It's like, can I convince these guys to work this way?
Yeah, and I was never really a purist about tape. The sound of tape, and because I was always trying to get the clarity out of things anyway, and I actually didn't like the way things sounded coming back off tape a lot of the time, because you get a tape machine that wasn't biased properly, or you'd get a bad batch of tape, for instance, and it'd be, it seemed like a long slog to get things to sound right off tape a lot of the time. But obviously there was a bit of magic that tape gives you, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was as glorious as people make out, and a lot of those people that do go on about it never actually worked it, never had to get in an hour before the band got there and line the tape machine up.
That's the thing. I mean, I worked with 2 inches. Well, no, one thing I remember, it was broken half the time. It was like somebody had to fix it.
I'm having to punch in on it and get make sure you punched in on the beat so you didn't get the glitch, or just prior to the beat, all that kind of thing. So I think we're in an ideal world now, especially with like the UAD sort of tape sims and stuff, that you can get that sonics out of it that you want now, but you've got all the functions of digital now, which is great, I think.
Now, as I mentioned, 2005, that's when I got active on your forum. Yeah. What got you started on that, and what do you think about the impact that forum has had on metal in general?
It's obviously when the internet started really sort of taking off, and I had no idea. I was just trying to put a website together just to promote myself. And what was the name of the forum?
The Anti-Sneap forum.
No. But
Ultimate Metal forum.
Ultimate Metal, that's it. One of the guys who was involved with the Ultimate Metal forum approached me and says, "Why don't you have your forum through us?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." And I had no idea it was going to take off. I just put my name to it, and all of a sudden there's this community getting built up, and it was fun. I mean, really was. There's a lot of guys who are on that forum that I'm still in touch with, who have gone on to be, well known in the music industry. Really.
Like you take a list. No, it's kind of a who's of metal today. I mean, like you got the Periphery guys were all on there.
Were they?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Misha was Bulb back in the day.
Right. Okay.
And Nolly was on there. Yeah. Joey Sturgis, Joel Wanasek, Ale Levy. Yeah. Ale was doing.
Lassie was on there.
Yep. Lasso Lammer.
Kazrog.
Yep. Yeah. Shane's still very busy. Does the Kazrog amp sims.
Yeah.
So many guys. A couple of the Ailstorm guys.
Right.
Brett from France. He was your moderator. He's still it. The forum's still active. By the way, it's still up there.
I haven't been. It got to a point where I'd type something on there or post something on there, then some kid would tell me I was wrong. I was like, okay, fine. I'm done here. So I kind of stepped away from it, and to be honest, I've stepped away from the internet in general. I've got off Facebook. I don't post on Instagram. I've had enough of it. So I'm quite happy down here. I always describe this as sort of Waco waiting to happen in the UK down here. You know, got my backline set up. I'm going to start a cult and just hang out down here. I think. You know, I've had enough of it. The outside world. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, spoken like a true Englishman. Yeah. So I was going to say, what do you think about the fact that all that got started on there, and so many people have had careers now because of that?
Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, obviously, you know, people. I mean, I learned stuff off there as well. I never say you don't know everything. You know, you talking to people and talking to other producers. Like, I mean, I talk to other producers all the time now. You know, Colin, Jay Rushton. But we all went out for lunch the other day anyway, and it's great because we're all in the same boat. We're all, you know, dealing with the same sort of circle of bands, really. So we're all sort of got ways of working things. It's always interesting to see how we all deal with it. So we're all, you know, all the guys at this level, I'd say, communicate with each other, and it's the same thing with the forum. We're all just chatting away and sharing sort of tips and stories, really. So it was a good thing to do.
Right. Yeah, I remember Colin Richardson would drop by every now and then too. Came on as the Basher.
Yes.
And everybody like, oh my God, it's Colin. You know, I was a huge Colin fan. I mean, like, how could you not be?
Yeah.
But that was always.
I
cool
mean,
when
me
he
and
dropped
Colin
by.
are really good friends. You know, I'd spoke to him yesterday actually, and we you know, since I think we first worked together in '94, and we've been, you know, really, you know, good friends since then. So we're always, you know, helping each other out on albums. And if I'm doing a mix here, I'll send him mixes to get a second opinion. And same, he does the same thing with me. So it's always like a fresh pair of ears, you know, that you can trust. So
Exactly. Well, we did that same thing on the Sneap forum. Like back in the day, we had a little like AIM messenger group, and we'd kind of bounce, you know, mixes off each other. It was like there was me and James and Brett and Lassa, and we just kind of like, hey, check this out. This is what I'm working on. What do you think? That kind of stuff. So believe me, I get that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That was actually really cool. That's one thing I loved about that forum is just everybody was so happy to help each other out. That was a great thing. There was definitely a spirit of camaraderie because we're all dealing with the same shit. You know, that kind of thing. Now the important question we all want to know, because you're probably the first guy who ever really started to make metal guitars sound really great on digital. I remember that being a point of conversation even on Gearsluts back in the early 2000s. Like, you know, a lot of because it was Gearsluts that had that whole snobbery attached to it, and somebody said,
still has, isn't it?
yeah, oh yeah, big time. They changed the name to Gear Space though.
Oh, how correct.
Yes, exactly. But the one comment somebody made that actually resonated with me is like, everybody bitched about digital. Somebody said, well, check out some of Andy Sneap's records. They sound really great. So what's your current favorite signal chain for guitars these days? What are you doing? What turns you crank?
I actually, I've been on a Unidyne 3 hunt recently. I discovered, and this was actually working with Colin, because we did a shootout of all my cabs and different 57s I got here. That my old Unidyne 3 57s sounded so much better than the standard 57s that are coming out of Mexico now. They had a brightness and more volume and more open. And then I got one of the, oh God.
I'm cutting this part of the video out because I don't want the price on Unidyne 3s to go through the roof.
Yeah, but the, what's the, there's a company now that do the different transformers for 57s. They do they call it the handle, you know, the base of it. That I can't.
Is that the one?
No,
that's the right angle one.
Crimson. Is it Crimson Audio? I think it's Crimson Audio that do it. And they do different transformers. I think the orange one is they recommend for the 57. And I got one of theirs the other week, which sounds absolutely killer. So I'll have a few more of those off you.
Okay, you will definitely see a Fearless Gear review on that coming up real soon because you just gave me a great idea for a video.
Yeah, but it's worth checking out. So that was great. But then I've been obviously on eBay trying to find the old Unidyne 3. So that was one thing that I'm looking at now a lot. The Heritage, we were talking about this earlier, the Heritage Audio 1073s I really like. They're nice and open. I mean, the SSL really as well. I usually end up with like 57. The Advanced Audio, not Advanced Audio, the Austrian Audio 818, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Love
magnificent.
that.
Yep.
Love that mic.
Do you like setting it and forgetting it, or do you like to process it and post with a variable multi-pattern?
No, I pretty much set it, to be honest, on the just the normal cardioid setting, and pretty much on the center of the vintage 30, 57 slightly off, and usually I find between the two it gives me what I want. You know, I do the Royer thing sometimes. I've said in the past, oh no, I just go with 157 in the right place. I've you know, over the years I've tried to blend other things in, and the Royer and like 421. Yeah, it depends on the cab really, and the what we're going for.
Sure.
But it's I usually blend it up the SSL, and yeah, that's it really.
Okay.
Nothing majorly secret.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
it's just what you're listening for. You know.
That's what I noticed on the walk in here, where the 818's up on the cab's like, I remember that mic. Yeah, I've got one, and it's absolutely amazing on guitar.
Yeah, it's great.
Really
It's
good.
like the best 414 you'll buy, I think. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like the variable multi-pattern because it really
fun, isn't it?
It really lets you tweak the sound out after
Yeah.
you've recorded,
Yeah,
it, especially on guitar.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. Now you immediately mentioned vintage 30. Okay, this is okay. I've got a quote from Nolly here. I thought this would be really great.
Oh god, he's mad for it, isn't he?
Yeah, because Cola actually said something to the opposite. You know, Cola, of course, Christian Cola.
Yeah.
And Nolly mentions something like that. Well, you wouldn't do a record with anything other than a vintage 30. And Cola's like, well, yes, I would. Are you strictly a vintage 30 only guy? What else do you like?
No, I mean just the standard. Is it the 65s and the 75s that they did? I think Tempo of the Dam was 75s actually.
Oh, the T75s.
Yeah. I think, but I seem to and some of the Blaze stuff was as well. I mean, it was that thing with the. I always found with standard tuning and a Marshall, you could get away with it because the mid range was slightly different. I think a lot for the more detuned stuff, the vintage 30 works because it gives you a bit more of that poke in the mix.
Okay.
And the low end's a bit tighter on it.
All right.
And even greenbacks as well. Some of the records I've done, I think it was a couple of the Testament records. We had the EVH cabs with the standard EVH. I think they're based on the Heritage speakers, aren't they?
They're based on the greenback. They're based on the original greenback.
Yeah, and we use those. So yeah, it's whatever sounds good, whatever's available. Sometimes, you know.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so you say the secret to getting not the secret, but your advice for T75 recording be tuned slightly higher than say, your standard down-tuned 7-string stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly. I think you can get a bit muddy and flubby with the old 75s. Yeah.
I've had nothing but a hell of a time trying to get anything usable out of a T75.
Yeah,
so.
it's. I mean, it's the center of the cone is so big when you look at it, isn't it? Yeah. It's just throwing the sound out rather than focusing it. You know.
Sure.
So,
Okay. All right. Well, they can be usable.
yeah.
I had heard that Heartwork was done with T75s. Do you know anything about that?
I know they did some weird things on that. There was 2 cabs strapped together.
Yep, I know that. I just don't know which speakers were used.
I don't know what speakers were used either. So
that's one thing. A video I want to do. I want to get a couple of 4x12s together and strap them together.
It was an old Allen and Heath desk that they tracked through apparently upstairs at Parr Street. So yeah, there was 2 cabs strapped together, and I heard rumor there was one of those little 12-watt Marshalls blended in with it as well.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me one bit. That kind of makes sense. Again, there's the whole thing about getting the glorious tube amp sound and then mixing in just a little bit of shit to give it some character.
Yeah.
It's like Frederick did it with Clayman because that was like 5150 and then like a valve state.
Yeah, and also I think it was at the Gates. Was it still at the Soul? They used the 10-inch speakers on that as well.
Oh shit!
I think so. Wow. Don't quote me on that.
Oh god!
But I seem to remember being told that.
Oh, okay, I've actually got a Laney 4x10 sitting at home. I haven't tried out yet. I showed it to Laney guys. They're like, "What the fuck is that?" We don't even know what the hell that was. My buddy's like, "Check it out." So now I got to do something when I get home.
Actually, the Gathering on the Gathering album, I think James used a 10-inch speakers for the solos on that.
Come on!
I'm pretty sure he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's definitely going to be a video coming out on the show. What happens if you actually put 2 4x12s together, like duct tape them together, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's interesting idea, isn't it?
Trying to do a con cab, see how that turns out. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. Now the big question being, I'm got to be one of the biggest Judas Priest fans in the world, so I have to ask,
Yeah.
what vocal mic do you use on Halford?
That's interesting. On the last album, I used the because I mentioned it earlier, Advanced Audio. I got one of their C12s that I used on him.
Okay.
Which is pretty much the whole of Firepower. I don't know what I'll use on this album, to be honest. I'll try a few things out. So, yeah, I haven't really decided. But I mean, the thing about Rob, he just sounds good whatever mics he sings into. You know, yeah, and it's that thing that. You know, I mean, he's using pretty much, I think, just a wireless 58 live. Again, sounds great. I recorded him on one of the 818s. We did a little bit of vocal stuff. Sounded great on that. You know, I think the source material is pretty good there, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, that was the thing. I remember seeing a quote with Tom Allen, and he was looking at like British Steel or something like that, or
I think it was just a U87 on those albums.
And he was saying the last one thing he's never had to ask out of Rob Halford was, "Can you do it again with Rob with a bit more feeling?"
Yeah. I mean, when we were tracking him and sort of working ideas out, he'd have a basic sort of plan in his head where he was going with the melody, or Glenn had written a melody or what have you, or Richie had. And we'd sort of build on it. We'd just work on it, and you could hear the confidence in his voice as he got used to where he was meaning to pitch with it. And, you know, it'd be a little shaky maybe at the start, but we'd just go over and over it. And as he gets his confidence, then you start hearing the delivery come out. And he's really the king of that, the timing. And people go on about his screams and what have you, but his timing, to me, and the way he snaps the lines and, you know, syncopates things, that's what makes it Rob Halford. And also his accent, that Birmingham accent. There's a little bit of that drawl in his voice when he's singing that you don't really hear out of an American singer. So there's a little bit of that in there that gives it some character and flavour too.
Interesting. Yeah, of course, it's about the person, not the gear.
Yeah, so. And he's loud as well.
Yeah.
I tell you, when you're sat in the control room and he's just working ideas out and he's singing next to you, it's like, oh, fucking hell. Yeah, there's that voice, you know.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you mentioned Firepower. Back on that. So guitar chain on that would have been what, 57 and 818, or?
No, I didn't have the 818s then. It was probably I think I had a Royer and a 421 up on it and a 57. And there's one. Let's think what we used. I think there was a JVM on it, and there was a 5150 Fender. Yeah, I don't think I had the Stealth. I think it was the standard 100 watt 5150 at the time.
Cool.
So yeah, that was pretty much it, left and right. And the way we did the rhythms on that was a little different because we had Glenn doing like the thickener on the rhythm tracks up the middle, and Richie left and right, so it was tighter.
So you're doing three.
Yeah, three on it. Yeah. And with Glenn, I think he used maybe a standard 5150 on. I can't remember.
Well, it sounded great.
Yeah, it worked out, didn't it? Yeah, I sort of dialed it into what we needed, really.
Yeah, that was basically the best thing Priest had done in a very long time.
Yeah, well, you know,
good job.
Try my best.
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what do you prefer for drummers? Do you use big sticks or kettle prod? See if there's some cows out there figuring to have one kicking around.
Yeah, no. What do you mean?
To make the playing time.
Oh, to make the playing time. No, it's not really a problem. You know, as long as they just keep going until they get it right, really, isn't it?
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Here we go. How much of the job in here working at this level is about getting great performances versus getting great tones?
I'm always about getting the performance, you know. I mean, obviously with guitars, nowadays we're recording DIs anyway, so the tone you can always sort out later. I think a good tone can inspire you to play well. So it's goes hand in hand, really. I always put a lot of time in trying to get guitar tones that we don't have to reamp. I think it's good to get things mic'd up and getting the musician feeling comfortable and inspired when it's going down. So really, it stood me well, that sort of idea, for the last 30 years, you know. So
fair enough. Okay. So to bring that around, here's the question. You mentioned coming in that you just recorded a band live off the floor for the first time in I don't know how long.
Yeah, God knows how long. I've not done that. I've been saying for a long time that and it was really the thought of how we used to do the old BBC sessions when I'd done one of those. It was always, you'd sort of give a song, you get everyone in the room together, play a song 3 times, pick the best take, bang the vocals on, maybe do the solo. And I wanted to do it because I've got this facility here, and every time we've been doing albums in the last 20 years really, it's all, you know, drums down to a click and a guide guitar, piece it all together slow, and I just feel things have got so boring, for the right word. I wanted to try a band playing together, a bit of pushing and pulling, and just seeing how it went. And my friend Mike, who used to be in the band Skin, wanted to do a live session and do 12 songs over a weekend. So we had a bit of fun with it. You know, got everyone in, got the cabs off in different rooms, everyone watching each other, the eye contact and the chemistry between the players. And I think just listen to what we recorded over the weekend. It was like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's what the old albums sound like.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, like, you listen to so many amazing records, and the reason they're amazing is because they were the bands playing as a unit.
And I'll tell you another thing as well. People get tone and performance muddled up. They'll hear an album they like. It's like the old Beatles albums, Zeppelin albums, and they're in love with the band, so they automatically think they were great tones. But actually, if that tone was applied to something else, it'd be like, oh, it's a bit thin, you know. Yeah. But it worked for those albums because it's part of the memory of how good those performances were. So you know, it makes me laughing a little bit that you get all these bands trying to be retro bands now and trying to get the old Zeppelin sounds or the old Sabbath sounds, when it was the songs that we loved at the end of the day. And it all comes down to, is the song any good, doesn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing we've been pushing so hard, like on my show and Trey Xavier's and that kind of thing, is, guys, it's time to stop writing riff salad and start writing songs again.
Yeah.
It's like the
cool riff
thing only goes cool riff thing only goes so far. It's like you have to write something memorable.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing for Priest with me, that they had the melody and the heaviness. You know, it was that. Well, it was the total package with Priest, wasn't it? You know, great guitar players, great singer, and it was almost like pop music within heavy metal in a way. The way the songs were structured, you know, the guitar solos were a song within a song almost, and it was just really, really well thought out, and you can tell a lot of effort and thought went into it.
Sure, and great vocal melodies that you could, you know, remember easily.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that's really what turned me on to the whole thing, because I'd never really heard anybody sing like that before.
Yeah,
it was, the guitars were amazing, but I just remember, like, the vocals just blew my mind.
It comes down to the vocal at the end of the day on any song, doesn't it? If the vocal grabs you and sort of speaks to you, and you know, you get the goosebumps on the back of the neck. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And I think with a band performing live, you get a bit of that back, because I think the listener can tell, maybe not consciously tell, but there's more of a connection there with that pushing and pulling and the way the music should move a little bit. Yeah. And not move really tempo-wise, but just in, you know, a bit more, you know, the way things ramp up a little bit and the way the chorus should hit and everyone leans into it. It's that kind of thing, you know. Right.
And you know, that was the thing. I mean, like, I was reading something, one of the records I did was Woods of Ypres, black metal stuff, and it's kind of a quote-unquote classic. And I remember reading some comments from some kids. I was like, wow, these sound like real performances and stuff. It's, yeah, because we was 3 guys standing around the drummer, and we did it live off the floor. You know, and I miss that so much. And my question is, how many modern metal bands do you think who could walk in here who could actually pull it off?
I think the guys who are on a pro level, who are touring all the time, could definitely pull it off, because the match fit, so to speak.
Right, because they're doing it every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of the younger bands, because a lot of bands are put together now almost with the internet, you know, it's people piecing things together. Right. They're not rehearsing as a band. But back in the day, bands used to have to rehearse to learn the material. You know, there was no real way of recording something. Right. You know, you'd have a mono cassette deck in your rehearsal room. You know, that was
remember those days. Yeah.
So bands used to rehearse more. So they get the shit together more. So yeah, I don't know now. I mean, certainly the pro bands would. Whether they'd want to do that, I don't know. But I'd like to think that it's something that you know, they are capable of doing.
Okay. But yeah, seriously, any studio nightmare stories? Not mentioning any names in particular.
Studio nightmares.
You know, I remember hearing some stories about, you know, a certain friend, you know, he used to have a studio with bands come in and bunk beds and that kind of thing, and him having to clean the puke out of one of the beds, that kind of shit.
Yeah, no, I've not had any real disasters really. I mean, I've had musicians who like a drink, but you know,
I saw the sign on the way, and no food or drink in here, and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
does that actually work?
I tell you what makes me. Yeah, it does work.
Oh, okay.
Going back to like we were talking about Queen earlier. Yeah, the thing, some of those old Queen videos where there's a can of Heineken and a glass of red wine on the desk, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just waiting to happen, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
I spilt coffee into the AMEC that I used to work at. I was trying to do a Darth Vader impression down the talkback mic.
no.
Yeah, that didn't go down very well. Me and Dave, the engineer, just pulling panels out. You know.
Oh shit. God, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I used to work with this Russian band and tell them, guys, come on, no drinking. Yeah, good luck with that. And it's just, my favorite thing is they'd leave half-empty beer cans all over the floor for you to kick over at the end of the day.
Yeah,
then you got to get a roll of paper towels and shit. Jeez. You know, so at least the sign works. And at least they're respectful enough here. That's cool. What are your favorite reference mixes when you're working on a record or something like that? What are you pulling up to compare your stuff?
I'm not. I don't. Okay. Yeah, I get it. To where I usually actually listen to the whatever band I'm working with, their previous records, if anything.
All right.
But I haven't got things that I put on all the time to reference. I know the room so well, so I kind of know where I am with it.
Okay,
I listen, you know, I've got like a Bose system in the kitchen, and you know, actually listen on my phone as well, just for balance, you know. But I really, because you can go down totally the wrong direction if you're not careful. So no, I don't really do that.
Fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
good advice, actually. I like that. You can go down the wrong direction. Never thought of it that way. Cool. All right, last question.
Yeah.
Any advice for anybody coming in these days who wants to be an engineer?
I think the biggest thing I see is people that are obviously very knowledgeable, and people that have you know been to college or university and learned all this stuff. The biggest thing for me is knowing how to deal with musicians and knowing how to keep the atmosphere right, and just finding the strengths within each musician really. Just, you know, you get a band in you, and there'll always be one guitarist that plays something better than the other guy. It's kind of, and just finding that happy mix and making people not feel left out, being patient with people, and just having a friendly demeanor with them really. I think it goes a long way of, you know, if the musician is comfortable in the studio, they'll play better. And just making it fun, you know. Just don't be looking at your watch all the time. Don't be, you know, oh, it's 6 o'clock, we've got to stop now. You know, just if it needs another hour, go for another hour. Get the right vibe. Don't put people under pressure. So I you know, with the whole studio here, I didn't want it to be sterile. I didn't want to be watching clocks. I've worked in enough studios in LA and London where, you know, you go overtime, it's twice the price. Whatever bit of gear you pull out the cupboards, you know, $5,000 for the week. I just wanted it to feel like a good environment. And it's you know, if I end up going like an extra few days on a mix to get it right, I go an extra few days. I don't charge the band for it. I just get the right results. It's got my name on as well. Right. So I've always gone at things with that sort of attitude, and you know, just trying to be pleasant with it really, you know.
Okay, cool. Oh, anyway, all right. So that is Andy Sneap from the middle of bumfuck nowhere in England somewhere, wherever the hell we are.
Right in the middle. Yeah, right in the middle, Derbyshire.
Yeah. And it's we're down some really lonely country lanes. Don't try finding the place. Believe me, you won't.
No.
It took us a few tries to get it right too. But Andy, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. Because so many people out there have been inspired by your work and your forum, and really did turn on a whole new generation of kids into making metal and to making it work on digital. And for that, we're very grateful for that. It's so great to have you on here finally. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, subscribing, all that good stuff. Of course, we can find all kinds of information on you. Whereabouts?
Oh, I'm gone into hiding now.
Oh, okay. Don't
that's it.
bother.
Yeah, you won't find me anywhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there you go. Don't bother looking. Here
No,
you go.
you won't find me. Yeah.
But you can find him on tour with Judas Priest, you lucky bastard.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you guys are going to be back out in the States in the fall.
Yeah, start sort of, I think, October 10th to 11th, I think is the first show, through until the end of November. And then South America straight after that through until December 20th, I think. So
Fantastic. All right. So look for him out on the road then. Okay, Andy, thanks so much for being on the show. I'll see you guys next time. All right, so this is... Nope, that's not it. How am I going to fucking write that?
I hope you're going to put all these in the video.
Oh, yeah, these are the bloopers that go in. Yeah, we always do them.
I thought you looked great without your shirt on the Megadeth.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Dave really liked that one, too.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
I'm sure he wants to strangle me, but whatever.